Alright. Here, we're gonna do it. We're playing Uncharted 2. Playing Uncharted 2. Is this gonna be the new meme? The new 10 out of 10 meme? We're playing Uncharted 2, meaning that I'm reviewing Uncharted 2 right now. Which is really bad for some, for a few reasons I'll get into, right now. But, yeah, this is the worst game I've ever played in my entire life. Worse than Taboo the Sixth Sense, worse than Color a Dinosaur, worse than Final Fantasy 13. Yeah, I don't know if you guys know, but this is the worst game of all time, and I'll show you why here. Actually, I encountered some badness here on this game. Actually, this is gonna fuck up the whole soundtrack thing. Oh well. Yeah, this is horrible. I mean, this is unexcusable. Look at this. What do you fucking call that? This is bullshit here. I'm like, this game's not even finished. You know, basically. Like, look at this. This is like worse than the Twin Snakes. That glitch on the Twin Snakes or whatever. This is worse than that. This game is unfinished. Actually, I'm reviewing this one, but I'm just holding this because it's funny. Because this is what I played originally. And it's actually the worst game of all time. And worse than all the other Uncharted games. No, for real though, it is the worst Uncharted game, but only by default. Just because all the other ones are so good. I haven't played 4 yet, but, you know, or Golden Abyss, but I don't actually have that one. I don't believe anymore, so. But, that was the reaction. Not that it was the worst game ever or whatever. I'm just blowing smoke here. This is okay. I'll tell you, it's a good game, and I appreciate it a lot more than I did when I initially played this version, like 5 or actually no, it wasn't like 5 years ago. It was like 7 or 8 years ago. I'm pretty sure. Definitely like a lot longer ago than 5 years. Like 8 years ago, I remember. I just saw my review pop up again on Facebook or whatever, because you know it sends you the memories or whatnot. Not a video for Facebook here, you know, corporate sponsors. But Ice Mountain should sponsor me because they're in all of the videos. Anyway, yeah, I'm just selling out. Rooster Teeth again. You know, like I have to wear this in every video now because they sponsored me to tell you guys. They didn't actually sponsor me. I'm just saying. It's just funny. I'm wearing this again because I don't have like an Uncharted shirt or whatever, so just get over it, alright? And this is literally the next day after the Until Dawn review, so that tells you how long after. But realistically, here's my initial opinion of Uncharted 2, is that it was an overhyped piece of shit because everyone and their mom, this is 10 out of 10! 10 out of 10! Game of the generation! Game of the generation! Metal Gear Solid 4 can suck it, because this is the game of the generation. Alan Wake can get the fuck out of here. This is the game of the generation. Not that I choose Alan Wake, but I obviously choose Metal Gear Solid 4, if anything. But, game of the generation, guys! It blew my mind the first time I played it. Like, holy shit, this is the most incredible piece of media I've ever experienced, or whatever the fuck. One of Pete Dora's favorite games of all time, and this and that, and fucking, like, unmatched experience. I'll never experience this again. Uncharted 3 is no good because Uncharted 2 is clearly the best one, or whatever. This is the kind of hype I went into this game with, was like, oh god, it's gonna blow the original out of the water. Even when I was reviewing the original, even when I said anything about the games, everyone was like, oh man, just wait till we get into Uncharted 2, it's so much better and all this shit. And it's like, I was so like way fucking overhyped for this shit. So going in and having a bunch of problems with the game initially, kind of soured me. And I'm like, what the fuck is the hype about this game? And then I played the third one and I'm like, wait, this is the one that everyone hates, but it's actually the best one? What the fuck? Like, my opinion on this series is like all different than the mainstream opinion, basically. But and it wasn't just the internet. It was my friends too, because my friends, even they were all on board with Uncharted 2. I mean, okay, so 2 of them haven't played it, but the two that have, uh, and there's a big meme between my friend Jameson in this game that this is the only game he ever plays or whatever, which I would feel sorry for him if that were actually true. But maybe it is, because this is the game that he's like replayed the most or something. There's some joke about that. And even when Nick played through all the games, he's like, oh, it's like one of the best ones or whatever. I think he ended up liking 4 the most, which like, so I'm excited to get to 4. Because I'm sure that's going to be awesome. Because that's all I've heard from anybody. It's awesome. Nobody's saying it's the game of the generation or whatever, but I mean, I think my game of the generation for PS4 there, that'd be Life is Strange, if anything. I count Before the Storm with that too, but those 2 games probably would be considered for that. I would say that's probably the one for me, but yeah. So, but, okay, so times have changed now a little bit. I played this game all through today. I played, like, a few hours of it last night. Like, maybe 2 hours. I got to, like, like, Chapter 3, and I didn't even, like, go into Chapter 3 at all. But, luckily, the stuff that I played today, most of the stuff I played today, I would say, like, the first, like, eighth of the game is just, like, really not that great. And that's my opinion. The game has, like, a really weak start. I know everyone really loves the train thing or whatever at the start, but I was just thinking about this to myself earlier, and I'm like, I don't really like that that's at the start, because later on when you get to that point, that's actually like a really good part of the game, and it's like this really kind of emotional, like, Nathan Drake's all beat up, and he's like going through this, and once you have the context for what's going on there, it's like so much more satisfying than just seeing it at the beginning. But I know they're setting that up so that becomes the context, but that really wasn't why the scene was effective. I feel like they just needed something to tutorialize, and they kind of just put that part in there because they're like, oh, this will blow people's minds or whatever. So like, like I don't care. I don't care that it's there, but like everyone's like, oh, this is so impactful. This was the coolest thing when I played this the first time. You know, like, all right, like, cool story, bro. Like, good for you guys. Like, I'm not on that level. Like, that's fine. You have your shit. But anyway, for like the first few hours of this game, I'm just like really not feeling it, and I hate how they kind of sideline all the characters from the original game. They don't even mention spoilers, by the way, for Uncharted 2 that came out in like 9 or 8 or something. When the fuck did this game come out? 2009. All right, so fuck you guys. It came out in 2009. Whatever. You know what the initial impressions I got off of this, like within the first few hours there, I'm like, so if Uncharted 1 was like a loving send-up to Indiana Jones and National Treasure, Uncharted 2, the first few hours is like, let's just make National Treasure. Like, that's what we're gonna make. And then that was Uncharted 2, like the first few hours there. There's even a part later where it's a direct ripoff of the Book of Secrets part where... I'm trying to think which part it is, but as soon as I got to that part, I'm like, this is exactly like the part in fucking Book of Secrets, the second National Treasure movie. So, like, they totally ripped that off, because wasn't Book of Secrets, like, 2007 or 8 or something? It's like the first one came out in 2005, right? So, I think... Let me make sure I got that right. Not that I care, but... By the way, those were legitimate glitches that I ran into. Just on that one part, but, I was kind of surprised by that. Like, literally, I never experienced anything like that in the first port of the Uncharted or Remaster or whatever. But the second one was like riddled with the glitches, and just that one part. And I didn't even like do anything crazy. I just walked into a wall, and then I was in glitched land, and I couldn't fucking get out. And I almost got out, but I didn't. Okay, let's see. National. Okay. But anyway, so yeah, so my opinion of the game has changed playing it all through today. I'm going to say that the first opening hours are still not the finest work of the whole thing, but it does get better, and I'm glad it does, because I remember actually the later parts. The only part of the game I actually remembered before this was like the later parts where in the snow and the ice and all of that, and like that ice cave where there's like certain parts that are kind of just hard to tell where you're supposed to go. That's like a main complaint I have with the game, is that there's just a lot of like still to this day, yeah, 2007. All right, still to this day, there's a lot of platforms where I don't necessarily, they're not as easy to see as they were in Uncharted 1. Now, even Uncharted 1, I mentioned this, there was only a few, but it was nitpicky stuff that I mentioned in the Uncharted 1 review about how some of the platforms were harder to see, and it wasn't always clear where you're supposed to go. But I felt like that a lot in this game, and that was my initial real problem with the game, is that. And the overabundance of action sequences. I know Uncharted 1 had a lot of action sequences and whatnot, um, but what was different about Uncharted 1 is I felt like they were still really integrating the story along with the action. There's a long stretches in this game where there's not a lot of story or character interaction, but there's still the action is just going on. So the pacing in the game is a little odd because there's not always enough story to balance with the action. Is the soundtrack still going? Are you fucking kidding me? Did it like exit or something? What the fuck? It like just closed. YouTube just closed for some reason. I don't understand this. Anyway, so the action kind of was a little overbearing at sometimes in comparison to Uncharted 1 there. So yeah. Let's get the soundtrack going again. Soundtrack's pretty good. I definitely think it's on par with, if not better than, the original soundtrack. So I do really like the original soundtrack too. It's just kind of background cinematic music, like I said in the original review. And I like that kind of stuff. You know, definitely like bringing up National Treasure again. Oh, I had the National Treasure movies here last time. That's what I should have put out. But did I have the games out last time? I don't remember. But I actually have a guide for Uncharted 2 as well, but it's like the most useless guide I've ever had for a game ever. Like, I got it because of like some of those platforms and stuff, and it never really tells you what platforms you got to jump to next. So it's like the most useless guide. And the Last of Us guide too. It's like the most useless guide. At least that one kind of shows you where some of the treasures and collectibles and shit are. But like, there's not a lot of collectibles in Uncharted 2. There's still the treasures like there were before, so that's kind of cool, you know. They're just an extra little collectible thing. Yeah. So, but Uncharted 2 is pretty good. So really what it comes down to is it's a lot like the original game, but so here's my problem with the opening, right? So they basically don't even mention some of the original characters until like a little ways into the game. And spoilers, by the way. I said that earlier, but I'm going to say it again. Spoilers. And then later in the game, then Elena comes back into the story like halfway through the game. It's like, oh, okay. So we're just going to not have her for the first half of the game. Like, because like she was one of my favorite characters in the original game, right? And then she does come back, and she's a great character in this too. But I missed her for the first half, you know? I'm like, it's like, I know you got to change stuff with the sequel, but it just felt like they actually had sidelined her for some other girl. And I'm like in Indiana Jones, that made sense because it was a prequel movie, the second movie was, to the original. So there was a different girl, and that makes sense. And I mean, even in the third movie, they had a different girl, but like, whatever, like, you know. So yeah, but anyways, so I'm glad that they brought her back eventually because the girl Chloe, who's the new girl or whatever, was like just okay. I didn't really like her that much in comparison to Elena, who was a much better character than Chloe. Sully got the shaft on this one though. He like was barely in the game at all. He was only in for a few missions, and then like he shows up at the end. That's just like it. So whatever. Oh, also the villain, or like the kind of the side villain, the initial villain. He kind of double crosses you or whatever. But he's like a British guy, and he's like blonde hair British guy, just like Sean Bean in fucking National Treasure. So it's like, dude, like what? Really? Like we're gonna be this blatant about it? And he betrays him just like Sean Bean does in National Treasure. So it's like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, just felt like really dumb, and maybe that was the point. Like they're playing with their own subversion of expectations or whatever. But it's just like, it really was just not great. But even the gameplay and stuff wasn't very fleshed out until like way later on. And even then, they had like an overabundance of action scenes in comparison to the platforming stuff. Um, there was an okay balance of platforming and action, but they just felt like it was done a lot better in the original. Just an opinion. That's, you know, whatever. But I like some of the puzzles and stuff in this one were pretty good. But yeah. So okay, so the other thing about the story is I also felt like the original game had a more personal feel to the story. Like they did eventually in this game get to a point where, not that it was directly related to Nathan Drake's past, but it was like you could definitely feel his character struggle and his character moment. He had some good character moments later in the game there. So it's not like he didn't grow as a character and learn as a character and have a hard journey as a character and all that. That's great. That's good stuff. That's how I'm talking about. The first game felt more directly related to his past because it was about his ancestor or his supposed ancestor or whatnot. And so it had like more of a personal stake to it. And just because it was the initial adventure, I think I really like those initial adventures, especially in these Indiana Jones, National Treasure, like these treasure hunter collector kind of movies, because you just really feel like that sense of like, oh man, this is like the first time we're hitting anything this big. Like, you know, Indiana Jones, he finds the Lost Ark and all that, and it's like a big deal, you know. It's like the second movie, there's not really like a treasure, and then it's like, and that was a prequel and whatever. But the third movie he finds the Holy Grail and whatnot, and that's cool too. But like, it's not my point. Point is, there's always something exciting about the initial adventure with these kind of things, especially with Indiana Jones. I mean, Raiders of the Lost Ark is like considered one of the greatest movies of all time. I think it's a great movie. I just prefer Last Crusade over it. That's the story for a different time. And with the first National Treasure, it's like a landmark movie, and it did like really super well, you know, and stuff. And the second one is a great movie, and I like them both a lot. But I still always am gonna just prefer the original because it's a great movie, you know. But with those, they're just kind of both together for me. It's like a series, you know. Like if I watch one, I gotta watch the other one. Just because it's all part of like the same story basically for me. But if I have to choose one, it's going to be the first one. This is the best one of those two. The second one is a great sequel to National Treasure, but that's my point, is that I'm really partial to these like first adventure kind of stories. I'm actually just really partial to first games in general, it seems, because usually the sequel's not very good for most games, but there's not a lot of good 2s. The only like good 2 I can think of is like Earthbound, like Mother 2. You know, like, but most other 2s aren't really as good in comparison. Or they're good, but they don't like live up to what the original did. For instance, Dragon Warrior 2 is a fucking really great game. But the original will always be more classic in the fact that it established a whole fucking genre and like a bunch of tropes for that genre, you know, like not that it like there wasn't RPGs before it, but it established a lot of tropes for the RPG genre, a lot of staples that are still in the genre to this day. Like the menus and stuff are like really always very similar to that initial game, you know, your attack, defend, all of that stuff, use items, that stuff all got transferred to Pokemon and every other Persona, everything since then, you know, it's very influential. And so first games for me generally are the best ones, but not always. Sometimes you get a second game that's actually really good and it improves upon the original. Something like Mega Man Legends also is another game where the first game is better than the second game, even though the second game improves on the gameplay and all of that from it. But the first game will always be more classic. Tomba 2. I talked about this in the Tomba review a few weeks ago for you guys. For me, it was like last week. But Tomba 2, great game, but it's not as good as Tomba 1. And I'm really biased on that one, but like I've heard a lot of people like Pikmin 2 better than the original Pikmin, which I haven't played. I played the original Pikmin, but I haven't beaten the original Pikmin yet. I mean, technically I did, but I want to get a good ending on that one. I want to actually finish the quest there or whatnot. A lot of people say the second one's better than the first one, so I'm excited to see that. A lot of people say Mass Effect 2 is better than the original, and I'm sure that's going to happen. So, yeah, so at some point, maybe I'll have played a good sequel to a game. But until then, most sequels to games aren't as good as the original. Zelda 2, not as good as the original Zelda. Now, of course, Link's Awakening, which is the fourth Zelda game after Link to the Past. You're so funny. After Link to the Past there is great. And then there's a lot of subsequent Zelda games that are great. But it's not the second game in the series. The second game in the series is always this crucial thing where it's like, it's usually never as good as the original. That's all I'm trying to say here. That's just a little side tangent. A lot of people like Spyro 2 better than Spyro 1. I like Spyro 1 better. I actually like Spyro 3. It's an Uncharted situation. It's my exact thoughts on the whole series is that for me, 3 is the best one, 1 is the second best one, and 2 is the third best one. And that's kind of how I am with Spyro, except I like Spyro 1 better just because of personal and nostalgic reasons. But I think Spyro 3 is definitely, out of the 3, maybe the best game out of them. But also, I think Spyro 1 is actually, might be the best one. I don't know, go back and watch the Spyro 3 review. We're not talking about that right now. I am, but we're not supposed to be talking about that right now. I'm supposed to be talking about Uncharted 2. So yeah, I mean, they improved some gameplay stuff, like, improved, like, it, there's a little more stealth elements that, like, actually work better. The cover system is, like, supposed to be better, but I didn't think it was technically any better than Uncharted 1, because I just played that, and I'm like, I get what they're going for, but they really needed to, like, get on Metal Gear Solid's level at this point. Like, 4 was coming out the next year. 3 had already come out, you know, a few years before this. Like, they really needed to get on that level of, like, just clinging to any angle of the wall, but they didn't really have that yet super well. Because to cling to another angle of the wall, you still have to get up, and then the enemies are going to see you anyway, so you've already ruined your stealth at that point. So this isn't really the kind of game where you can stealth it super well. I mean, some people probably can, but I can't because I didn't. The controls don't really work for me in that regard. You know, but that's fine. It's not like the controls were bad or anything. It controls great. Controls just as good as the original, in my opinion. I didn't think the original controlled that bad either, but so that's cool. And they've got some new guns and stuff. Like they got a Vulcan cannon that you can get off of certain enemies. It's like really annoying big ass enemies. There's like a crossbow that you can get later on, and it like instant kills these like really tough enemies, which is pretty cool. Like RPGs and stuff. I think you could get that in the last game. I'm not sure. There certainly wasn't a tank or a Hind D fight in the original. Not that it's a Hind D, but it reminded me so much of those fucking Metal Gear fights. Like, okay, like, yeah, now we're ripping off Metal Gear Solid as well. Like, alright. You know, like I said, it had a lot more tendency as like an action sort of game. Which is fine, but just saying. That's just an observation I made. More action than platforming and puzzly stuff. I mean, there wasn't a lot of puzzle elements in the original, but there's actually, I think, more puzzle elements in the original than there was in this game. But yeah, no, it's good though. Let's see. I don't really know what else to really talk about it without like going into specifics. Like, oh, this part was cool and this part was cool and stuff. Yeah, I don't know. It has a decent variety in the setting and whatnot. So that's all right. I feel like, well, I don't know. I think the original game probably didn't have as much variety in the setting. It seemed to work all right. But I think I prefer the jungle to the like the icy sort of setting of this game. 'Cause that's what I think of when I think of this game. I think of snow and the mountains and stuff. And I know that's like the later part of the game, but it's like that's what I think of. I think of more jungle when I think of the original, and then the third one makes me think of desert, even though most of that game doesn't take place in the desert. I'm pretty sure. Pretty sure it's just near the ending or whatever. But it's probably just the covers that make me think this. It literally is. It's just the covers, man. That's pretty much what it is. But hey, this Nathan Drake here has like a white kind of background. It kind of looks like desert. So maybe they knew what the best Uncharted game was. I'm just saying. Anyway, also it's funny, and I'll get to this more when I talk about Uncharted 3, but it's funny because also that one has a lot of elements of the third Indiana Jones film, where he's a young Nathan Drake, and then also like yeah. I'll talk about that when I get there, but it's just funny because it's basically the last crusade of Uncharted games, so that's pretty cool. Yeah, I don't know. Graphically it looked pretty good as well. Um, not like leaps and bounds better than the original, but it was a decent improvement over the original, I suppose. Um, I think all of the three games look really good, especially for the small time gap in between. I'm like, when the fuck did the first Uncharted come out? That was like what, like 2007 or something, right? Yeah, 2007. So that's like only 2 years between each of these games. When the fuck did this come out, actually? 2000, what? 2011. Yeah, so wow, 2011? Really? That seems a little late for PS3, doesn't it? I don't know, anyway. Yeah, well, I guess the new consoles didn't come out until like 2013 and 14, right? Huh. Anyway, yeah, so yeah, like there's only incremental times between these games, but I mean it's no Kojima like holy shit, we're gonna blow this out of the water fucking how many years later. So like okay, Metal Gear Solid 1 came out 98. Actually, there's another one. Metal Gear Solid 1 I consider to be better than Metal Gear Solid 2, but Metal Gear Solid 2 is actually a good 2. If we're gonna talk about two sequels and then like everyone's gonna disagree, like everyone hates Metal Gear Solid 2 for some reason. I think it's a fucking great game. It's not as good as the other ones, obviously, but it's still a fucking great game. Um, yeah, it's not as good as the original, granted, but I'm just saying, it's a good 2. And it definitely improves upon the graphical fidelity in the gameplay. That was my point with this, actually, was that came out in 2001, right? 2001, I think? Pretty sure it was 2001. Or maybe it's 2002. Anyway, it was only a few years after Metal Gear Solid 1. And the technology leap was incredible there. And then like 2005, that's only like another 4 years or three or 4 years after is when the next game came out, and that was like a fucking gigantic leap past Metal Gear Solid 2. And then, you know, what, like 3 years later, they have Metal Gear Solid 4, which is like an even bigger leap. And it's just like, holy shit, man. And then it took them like 7 years to release the next game, but yeah, I'm just saying, it's pretty impressive. Pretty impressive, like every, 3 or 4 years, they fucking, release like a new thing. Think about that. Did I ever mention this in a video? Everything for Metal Gear Solid, the original 4 games, all of that, the original, what I still consider to be the Metal Gear saga, That was a 10-year thing. That was only 1 decade to release all 4 of those games. Like, that's impressive. That they came that far in a decade is crazy. That's mind-blowing, you know. So, my point is, Uncharted 2 doesn't look that much better than Uncharted 1, but hey, you know, it's still good. They're still both very good-looking games. And Uncharted 3 looks really good too. So, yeah, it's a good-looking series. So aesthetically, it's cool. And the art style and whatever is always great. I mean, you know, aesthetically, the games look great, so. Yeah, soundtrack's good. Gameplay's good. You know, it was a nice remaster other than the fucking glitches. But maybe those were there on the original game too, I don't know. Maybe I'm just like self-remembering this because I don't even remember half of me playing Uncharted 2, like how many years ago. But, you know, it might have been actually like 2013 or something. I'm trying to think. I think it was the end of 2012. Because what it was I remember I was playing these games. It was on winter break, whatever year that was. So it was a winter break from school. So I finally had gotten some time as a break, you know. I was like, I'm going to play these Uncharted games, all 3 of them, you know. And that might have also been another reason why I wasn't so into Uncharted 2 initially, was because I was like really burnt out from having just played Uncharted 1 to Uncharted 2. This is why I'm playing games in between now. It's like, man, I don't remember actually even when I played Uncharted 1. That was a while ago for me. So I don't know if I mentioned that like in the review, like when that specifically was, but I know I recorded that a while before that review came out, so probably like a few weeks before that. So like that was probably like a month or 2 ago for me now, like, you know, a month and some change or something to that effect. Definitely feels like a while ago, but I don't have the greatest concept of time right now either, because the weeks are just kind of blending together for me. So, man, this whole fucking year is just like gone by like super fast, I tell you. Ever since like March or whatever, it's just like, it's just like, whoa. It's already fucking almost the end of October now. By the time you see this, it'll be November, so fucking looking forward to Ready Player 2. That's gonna be a great 2. It's probably not gonna be as good as the original, but it's not a video game, so it doesn't count. But anyway, so yeah, Uncharted 2. It's good now. Was it always good? Probably, but like, I enjoy it more now. I enjoy the gameplay and even the story. Even if it's not as a personal of a story, I enjoy that there's a lot of like really character-centric moments, and there's a lot of like Nathan Drake questions himself, you know, like if he's even meant to, you know, do this, or he's cut out for the job or whatever, and he has to kind of get over that. It's like a Spider-Man 2 thing. So there's another thing they're ripping off. He has like that kind of crisis at some point. And later on, there's like a lot of really kind of emotional scenes and whatnot. So that's pretty cool. But at the end of the day, I wasn't as invested in the Marco Polo, whatever the Shambhala or whatever the location. I wasn't as invested in that. And he gets gypped on the treasure at the end because there really is no treasure. So again, but at least in the first game you actually got something. So that kind of felt like a cop out too. Like, at least both in the National Treasure movies, he makes out with something, you know. Not makes out, makes out. Well, he makes out with the girl both times, but he gets away with something. You know, he always has some kind of thing that he finds. Also, did you guys notice in the second National Treasure movie? You remember in the first, at the end of the first National Treasure movie, he's like, if we ever find a treasure that defines all of history again, you get the call on the finder's fee. And then, yeah, the second movie comes around, and they find the City of Gold. So that's pretty historical. Like that could maybe change history or whatever. And then like Riley doesn't get to decide the finder's fee for that. So bullshit, man. Riley gets gypped both times, but he does get a tax-free Ferrari or whatever. So that's kind of cool. And that girl or whatever, who probably won't even be in the third movie. But we'll see. Hopefully they actually make the third movie, because it was supposed to be back on track, and then every fucking thing went to shit. So yeah, I like Uncharted 2 now, better than I did before. It's a pretty good game, and I definitely had a lot of fun playing through it today. Maybe I'm just a little biased, because also the whole time that I was playing through it, I was also listening to a lot of writing, like this writing channel that had like a bunch of like really cool information about writing and a lot of that kind of stuff, and I'm still like, oh wow, you know, like I'm more engaged in that than like actually playing the game. So maybe that was like biasing me to be more fair on the game, and just like oh yeah, you know, like because I was listening to this more so than focusing on, but I was focusing on the game too, of course. I'm just saying, like, because I was having a good time listening to that, could have biased my opinion to actually be enjoying the game more. But I'm just gonna say that the game was better than I thought it was gonna be this time around. I didn't have a lot of expectations going in. I mean, like, I knew that I didn't like the game as much. I think the first time I legitimately had a lot of problems with the game, and I legitimately didn't find it to be as good of a game, which I still say is true, but it's a lot closer now. It's like just below Uncharted 1 for me at this point. So they're a lot more neck and neck now. I'm still going to give the point to Uncharted 1, but just barely. And it's just, you'll see, it's going to be a point. But yeah, so it's good though. I like it a lot more now. So I'm going to give it an 8.1 or 2, 8.1 or 2. Let me see. What was the, I'm going to give it 1 point less than Uncharted. Yeah, 8.2. I'm sorry. That's what I was going to give it, is 8.2. Because one less than Uncharted 1. 0.1 less. That was my joke there, is that give Uncharted 1 the point. So 8.2. Good game. It's a lot better than I had expected it to be this time around. Because I had a lot of legitimate problems with it in my original playthrough, and I was not very happy with it, and it really didn't live up to all that I had heard that it was supposed to live up to. And I mean, I still don't think it lives up to all of that hype, but I still think that it's a good game. I still don't personally understand why all the hype is there. I can see it, but I don't understand it. You know what I mean? So, yeah. But I still think it's a good game, and you should play Uncharted 1 and then play this game. Don't just jump into this game, because that's dumb. Oh, I want to talk about the ending, because I legitimately liked that a lot. With Elena and Nathan Drake there. Of course, I gotta ship that, because that's a good ship there. And how could you not after that ending? Like, you know, Chloe's like, you know, do you love her? And he's like, yeah, you know, and then it's like, then they have their little bickering or whatnot. The fucking things that they go out on is hilarious. I just couldn't stop laughing there. You know, I've been there. I've done that with I've been in that situation. That's all I'm gonna say. So, yeah. So you got to ship that because that's good. That's the primo ship right there. And I know they do more with that in 3, and I assume in 4 because I've seen that her character is in that as well. So that's good. I like them together, and I want them to end up together and be happy together or whatever. So that's why I thought it was just kind of a cop out when they brought in Chloe as like this new character or whatnot. Is just like just replace the. It just felt like they were actually just replacing the cast of the original game and just we weren't gonna mention them again or whatever. But they ended up showing up later. But it was like, what the fuck? Like, what's that all about? You know? So like, I don't know. But anyway, not a big deal. It's a great game. Soundtrack's good. I think I said that already. It's definitely worth your time. And yeah, that's it. So until next time, until we play Uncharted 3, which won't be for a little bit, but you know, maybe I'll get to it this year or early next year or something. I don't want to wait too long for it. But I still got a few other games I want to get to this year. There's like a whole pile of games there that I assumed I was going to get to this year that I still haven't. I got a little sidetracked for October there. And because I actually just wanted to play Tomba. So actually, well, and also because the other thing was I was going to review Luigi's Mansion 2. And that game ended up just being way more of a hassle than it was worth to review. And I really don't find myself wanting to go back to that one. I just don't think that it's as good as the original, and there's a lot of problems with that one. Excessive dialogue that just annoy me to pieces. So I don't know if I'm ever going to finish that one. But that was like what I invested a bunch of my time in initially for October, and then that didn't work out. Then I had to review Dragon Quest Monsters as well, I think was the other one, because that ended up being the one that I finished
today we're playing
instead or whatever. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, so my plans for October were a little sidestepped here. Oh, and Ring Fit Adventure was the other one. Yeah, so I mean I got 2 horror games in this month, and then this will be not horror related, obviously. Yeah, it was just Alan Wake and Resident Evil there, unfortunately. Oh, and Until Dawn. I forgot about that one. But yeah, so that'll be... So that's 3. That's not bad. That's actually not bad. 3 or 4 ain't bad. So that means that I had 5 altogether, like, ready to go. Because I had Medieval, which I wanted to play, but just didn't get to. But I think that's probably going to be the next one that I try to get to, if anything. Just because I really want to. And that'll count as a... I mean, technically, for 2 reasons, that'll actually count as a gem from the backlog. I assume it's going to be. I mean, I played through 98% of the game. I just couldn't beat the final boss. But that's why it'll actually count, is because I couldn't beat the final boss. So technically, I've never actually beaten Medieval, even though it's a remake, even though the remake is just more of a remaster. Like, they remade... Oh, this is where this term gets so fucking stupid. They remade, obviously, the graphics and the level design and all that, but it's like, it's the same game. Like, structurally, the level design is all the same, but it's like, they've remade it so it looks better. So it's almost just like a remaster when you think about it like that, which is just kind of specifically annoying, because then how do you define these things? It's whatever. This is totally unrelated to Uncharted 2. I'm excited for Uncharted 3. It actually... Uncharted 3, and I meant Uncharted 4. But actually, also, there's a 5th game that has to come in before Uncharted 4, which is The Last of Us Remastered, which is also sitting there under Uncharted 4. It should be on top of Uncharted 4, because I'm actually going to play that before Uncharted 4. So that'll be fun to play and review. I haven't played that one in a few years. Actually, yeah, it has been a few years, because my brother still has other place at that point. Huh. Weird. Okay, yeah, but, so that'll be fun to replay, The Last of Us again. But, I gotta beat Uncharted 3 first, then we'll get to The Last of Us, then we'll get to Uncharted 4. Not gonna say that all that's gonna happen this year. Maybe Uncharted 3 will happen this year, but that's the most I'm expecting out of that. As far as the rest of that backlog over there for this year, there's like 10 games over there. That shit's not happening. I'm probably not gonna get through all of those. We'll see, maybe. But I'm not gonna like strain myself with it. There's only really like what 8 months left in the year, or 8 months, 8 weeks left in the year or whatever. So like that's not all happening in that. Plus, I kind of want to maybe do some other replays now that I've done Tomba. I'm like, well, now that I've done Tomba, I can do anything, right? Like, that's the mindset there. Because that was always the biggest thing, was like, how can I review Tomba? Well, I did it. And then it's like, how can I review Metal Gear Solid? Well, technically, I kind of almost did that, too, back when I did the Twin Snakes. I talked a lot about what Metal Gear like meant to me and what made that game good. And I think if I could do a very similar thing as I did for Tomba, a lot of... God, it's going to take forever. It's going to take like an hour like it did in the Tomba review. Talking about what Metal Gear Solid 1 means to me. And then I could do the review of the game, or do that simultaneously, kind of like I did with the Tomba thing. I think that I could actually, now that I've done Tomba, it's like I can review anything is my point. Like, you know, any nostalgic game, I could probably do it. I just need to put my mind to it, you know? It's like, it felt like a barrier before of like, can I really review these games? What am I going to say? But like, now that I've done that game and I actually did it a lot of justice, I feel like I did a pretty good job reviewing Tomba. Like, I think I could do it. I think I could do any of these games, you know? Sky's the limit. I mean, Metal Gear's a little tougher because you got to review the story and whatnot, and that's a lot, you know, left up to interpretation and whatnot. And there's a lot of details there that I haven't picked up on. You know, even though I've played the games a bazillion times, my friends picked up on a lot of details that I haven't, and still more details to always pick up with those stories. So I'll just do my best, I guess, at that. But yeah. So I wanna do more of that, you know. So we'll see what happens this year. Is my point for those games. It's not really a lot of Christmas games kind of to review or nothing. So Christmas Nights, but I still gotta beat Nights into Dreams for that, I guess. So, actually, is that sitting over there? Christmas Nights? Yeah, that is sitting over there. It's Nights into Dreams sitting over there. I don't see it over there. I gotta take that off my shelf then. Yeah, because I see it over there is where I see it at. It's supposed to be over there where the backlog is. But anyway, this is getting way off track. Mega Man 2. That's a good 2. That's a good one. Anyway, so I haven't been talking about Uncharted for like 10 minutes now, I'm sure, or whatever. So I'm going to end this because I'm just rambling now. So this has been JZNES saying keep it classic. Stick around for more reviews, underrated games. I'll see you guys in the next one. JZ out.